When we pull back in relationships, we often do so to gain clarity, but the effect goes beyond just our own perspective. Taking a step back allows both sides to reevaluate and reflect, leading to an important period of introspection and recalibration for everyone involved. While we may think we're simply giving them space in the physical sense, what we're really offering is a profound opportunity for both of us to reflect on what the relationship truly means. In our busy lives, we tend to get caught up in a routine, a rhythm, a pattern of interacting that may not leave much room for genuine self-examination. We move from one interaction to the next, filling gaps with text messages, calls, and plans. While it may feel natural, this constant presence can sometimes dilute the impact of each individual moment together. When we take a step back, it disrupts that rhythm and creates a noticeable change that breaks the usual flow. The other person, accustomed to having us around, suddenly feels a shift, and that absence can be powerful. It allows them to experience the contrast between life with us and life without us. In this space, they can begin to reflect on our significance in their lives. Our absence allows them to confront feelings they may have been too busy to notice or understand. Without us constantly there, they might come to realize how much we add to their life, how we make them feel, and the positive influence we have. These realizations might not have surfaced if they were constantly engaged in the dynamic, habitual nature of the relationship. Distance creates a kind of emotional solitude that forces people to confront their true feelings, to notice the ways we impact their life, and perhaps even appreciate what we brought to their daily experience. Additionally, when we give space, we release some of the pressure that naturally builds up in close relationships. When there's a sense of distance, there's less expectation for immediate communication, less pressure to respond, or to be involved in the minutiae of each other's lives. This release allows the other person to evaluate the relationship without feeling the need to react or respond. The absence of pressure provides a clearer lens through which they can view what the relationship means to them without the noise of daily demands. They might begin to see the relationship as something not to be taken for granted, but as something meaningful, something they actually value deeply. Our own ability to step back, to allow space without resentment, also signals to the other person a sense of maturity and self-assurance. By showing that we're not reliant on constant contact for our own happiness or sense of self-worth, we demonstrate an independence that is attractive in itself. We subtly communicate that we don't need to control the relationship's direction or speed. Instead, we trust in its natural course. This confidence, this lack of dependency, often creates an emotional attraction, a gravitation that draws the other person back. They sense that we're giving them the freedom to reflect and choose freely without our influence, and ironically, this freedom often brings them back with renewed interest. Our choice to create space also serves as a reminder that relationships require balance. When we're always present, there's less room for reflection, for longing, and even for appreciation. Distance allows for a balance between closeness and separateness. It's in this gap that appreciation can grow, that feelings of attachment can resurface, and that both people can feel a rekindling of genuine affection. Reflecting on a relationship from a distance allows the other person to notice the small things they might not have before. They may begin to miss certain moments, specific qualities, or the way they felt in our presence. They may start to long for the warmth, the laughter, the comfort, and even the challenges we brought into their lives. As they reflect on the moments they shared with us, their mind fills the space we've left with memories that grow fonder in the absence of new ones. This reflection helps them to reassess what the relationship truly means to them. In the end, by taking that step back, we allow both sides to gain perspective. We open a door to a new understanding of each other and the relationship. People often return after distance not just because they missed us, but because they've had the chance to appreciate us in ways they couldn't while we were always there. So when they do come back, it's often with a deeper awareness and respect for what we shared, and sometimes that's exactly the kind of foundation that can turn a relationship from fleeting to lasting. When someone is always around, we can easily take their presence for granted. They become part of the scenery, a constant that we don't notice as much as we should. But the moment they step back, the moment we feel their absence, a shift happens. Suddenly, we realize the emptiness they leave behind, and this feeling allows us to truly understand what they meant to us. In relationships, absence often sharpens the value of presence, teaching us to see what was always there, but perhaps overlooked in the familiarity of constant closeness. Absence acts as a spotlight on what's missing. It's a unique form of clarity that we often can't achieve in the day-to-day interactions and habits of a relationship. When someone's presence is a given, we might stop noticing the things they do for us, the joy they bring, or the subtle ways they make our lives better. Maybe it's a particular laugh, the thoughtful things they say, or even the quiet moments that make us feel at ease. These qualities often slip into the background, blending into the day-to-day routine. But when that person is no longer there, suddenly each of these details stands out. We begin to feel their absence in all the small ways we didn't even realize mattered. In this absence, we're left with memories. These memories fill the gaps of their missing presence, reminding us of the value they added to our lives. It's as if each memory is a reminder of what we overlooked or undervalued, a chance to truly see the depth of what they brought into our lives. When someone steps back, we find ourselves recalling their kindness, the ways they lifted our spirits, and how they were there when we needed them most. Without the distraction of new moments, we start to replay these memories in our minds, and with each replay, our appreciation grows. We realize that their presence was more impactful than we might have recognized at the time. Absence doesn't only affect our memories, it also impacts our emotions. When we feel the emptiness left by someone's absence, a certain longing emerges. This longing can be powerful because it reveals our true feelings, the emotions that might have been buried under the layers of routine or even frustration that often accompany close relationships. It's only in the quiet of their absence that we come to terms with how deeply we care. This longing to have them back, to share new moments together, is the heart's way of reminding us of their importance. When we create distance in a relationship, something interesting happens. We gain emotional freedom and clarity. Stepping back allows us to escape the cycles of expectation, obligation, and reaction that often shape our interactions with others. This space allows us to breathe, observe our own emotions more honestly, and evaluate what we truly want from the relationship. In close relationships, the day-to-day exchange of emotions, energy, and time can feel like an unbroken stream. We don't often pause to understand our own feelings or think critically about where the relationship stands. But when we allow for distance, we give ourselves and the other person a rare chance to clear the air, providing a sense of emotional freedom that can help both sides reflect and grow. Emotional freedom in this context means freedom from the roles and expectations we often play in relationships. We each play many roles in our interactions: the supportive friend, the reliable partner, the encouraging family member. Over time, these roles can create unspoken expectations, leading to patterns of behavior and responses that may not reflect our authentic feelings. When we take a step back, we remove the pressure to constantly fulfill these roles. Without the need to immediately respond, react, or manage someone else's feelings, we gain the freedom to simply be with our own thoughts and emotions. This freedom allows us to notice what we genuinely feel without the influence of anyone else's expectations. One of the most valuable things we gain from this freedom is clarity. We gain a clear sense of what we want, what we need, and even what we're willing to tolerate in the relationship. While we're constantly engaged, it can be difficult to separate our own desires from the influence of the other person. The space created by emotional freedom gives us the distance needed to reflect without feeling the need to explain ourselves, defend our feelings, or accommodate another person's reactions. We begin to realize what's genuinely important to us, both in the relationship and independently. With this clarity, we can return to the relationship if we choose to with a sense of purpose and intention, rather than simply going along with the flow. For the other person, this distance can also bring about their own form of emotional freedom and clarity. They, too, may feel relief from any emotional cycles that might have become habitual in the relationship. Without our immediate presence, they have room to consider their feelings and to recognize any patterns of dependence, reliance, or expectations they may have developed. They might begin to understand what the relationship means to them outside of the routines and habits they've grown accustomed to. Just as we benefit from reflecting on our own feelings, they benefit from reflecting on theirs, which can lead to a stronger understanding of themselves and of their role in the relationship. This period of emotional clarity also allows us to gain perspective on any issues or conflicts we might have had with the other person. While we're deeply involved, even minor disagreements or misunderstandings can feel magnified. We might become reactive, and our judgment can easily become clouded by emotions in the heat of the moment. But with distance, we can step back and see the bigger picture. We gain a fresh perspective, realizing that some issues might not be as significant as they felt initially. This clarity enables us to approach future interactions with a more balanced and level-headed perspective. Moreover, emotional freedom gives us a chance to reconnect with our own inner peace. In relationships, especially close ones, it's easy to become emotionally intertwined with the other person's moods and needs. Sometimes we might prioritize their happiness over our own, which can lead to a sense of emotional burnout. By taking time to ourselves, we can focus on what brings us peace, fulfillment, and joy outside of the relationship. This time alone can remind us of our own identity, separate from any roles we play for others, and can help us recharge our emotional reserves. When we feel whole and grounded within ourselves, we're better equipped to re-engage with others in a healthy, balanced way. For both sides, this period of emotional freedom can ultimately serve as a reset. It helps us shed any negative patterns that might have developed and allows us to come back to the relationship with a renewed sense of understanding. If both people feel clear and self-aware, they're more likely to reconnect with a sense of mutual respect and a deeper appreciation for each other's individuality. In the end, emotional freedom and clarity gained from distance are invaluable. They allow us to examine our relationships honestly without the influence of immediate expectations or reactions. We gain a deeper understanding of our own needs and desires, which in turn makes it easier to communicate openly and effectively with the other person. This period of clarity can become the foundation for healthier, more meaningful connections going forward, allowing us to re-engage with a renewed sense of authenticity, respect, and understanding. Emotional freedom is not about breaking bonds, but about returning to them with a stronger, clearer sense of self as self itself that's ready to connect in a genuine and fulfilling way. When we set boundaries in a relationship and choose to show self-worth, we communicate something essential: that we respect ourselves, our time, and our values. By stepping back and holding to these boundaries, we remind others of our value not through words, but through our actions. In relationships, we sometimes fear that setting limits will push people away. However, in reality, boundaries are a reflection of healthy self-respect and can create a deeper, more balanced connection. They ensure that our relationships are not built on neediness or dependency, but on mutual respect and understanding. At the heart of self-worth is the understanding that we deserve respect and should not compromise our needs or values to keep someone close. Often people worry that saying no or asking for space will make them seem distant or uncaring. Yet consistently being available or agreeable can sometimes lead to being taken for granted. Boundaries communicate that we value our own time, emotional well-being, and priorities. They signal that while we are open to connecting, we won't sacrifice ourselves in the process. This strength and independence tend to inspire respect from others, who see that we are not willing to bend just to please them. Boundaries encourage others to appreciate us for who we are rather than for how much we can offer them. In this way, self-worth is the backbone of healthy relationships. When we hold ourselves to a standard and make it clear what we will or won't accept, we naturally attract people who value and respect those standards. This does not mean being inflexible, but rather understanding our own limits and communicating them with confidence. It's about having a strong foundation of self-respect that doesn't waver based on the other person's actions or responses. When we show that we respect ourselves, it's as if we're giving others permission to do the same. Our boundaries become a guide, subtly teaching them how to treat us. This demonstration of self-worth and boundaries also clarifies the terms of the relationship, helping to prevent misunderstandings and unrealistic expectations. Without boundaries, we might unintentionally allow others to expect more from us than we can reasonably provide. This can lead to feelings of resentment or exhaustion as we try to meet these unspoken demands. But when we set boundaries early on, we create a balanced space where both sides understand what is expected. It's easier to feel comfortable and authentic in a relationship where we know that we are free to express our true needs and limits. Boundaries also protect us from behaviors or situations that might otherwise compromise our emotional well-being. In close relationships, it can be easy to ignore our needs or endure situations that feel uncomfortable just to avoid conflict or keep the peace. However, each time we ignore our boundaries, we chip away at our own self-respect, which can leave us feeling emotionally drained and disconnected from ourselves. Boundaries serve as a line of defense, allowing us to engage in relationships without sacrificing our inner peace. They help us maintain a sense of stability so that we don't feel lost in the relationship or lose sight of who we are. Moreover, boundaries are a clear indication of emotional maturity. When we set boundaries and stand by them, we show that we are capable of self-reflection and that we understand what we need to thrive. It demonstrates that we're not expecting others to fulfill all our emotional needs or solve our problems. Instead, we're willing to take responsibility for our own well-being. This level of maturity can be inspiring, as it demonstrates a healthy level of independence and a deep understanding of self. When others see us holding firm to our boundaries, they are more likely to appreciate the strength and confidence that come from knowing who we are and what we stand for. Another important aspect of self-worth is that it encourages us to choose relationships that are mutually supportive rather than one-sided. When we respect ourselves, we naturally gravitate toward people who respect us in return rather than those who might seek to take advantage of our time or kindness. In this way, boundaries help to filter out relationships that might not be truly beneficial for us. We start to see that relationships should be a source of strength and encouragement rather than a drain on our energy. Boundaries become a litmus test, showing us who is willing to engage with us on equal terms and who is looking for a relationship based on respect and mutual support. Ultimately, showing self-worth and setting boundaries can transform a relationship, creating an environment of respect, honesty, and understanding. People often return to relationships where they feel a sense of respect and admiration for the other person's integrity and sense of self. When we demonstrate self-worth, we cultivate an atmosphere where both parties are encouraged to grow, support each other's boundaries, and celebrate each other's individuality. Boundaries don't keep people out, rather, they invite the right people and those who see our worth and are willing to engage with us in a balanced, respectful way. In the end, by showing self-worth and maintaining boundaries, we create relationships that reflect who we truly are. We become someone who values not just the connection itself, but the quality of the connection. And this approach, this commitment to respect and balance, allows us to build stronger, more genuine bonds that can endure and thrive. When we establish boundaries in relationships, we're sending a powerful message about self-worth. This act of setting limits and standing by them is an assertion that we value our time, energy, and emotions. Often, people worry that drawing boundaries may distance others, but boundaries are essential to healthy, lasting connections. They don't drive people away. Instead, they attract those who respect us for who we are and are willing to meet us on balanced terms. By showing self-worth through boundaries, we let others know that we won't compromise on our well-being for the sake of keeping them close, which ultimately strengthens the relationship. Self-worth is rooted in understanding that we deserve respect and should not have to sacrifice our values or needs to be accepted by others. When we consistently make ourselves overly available, we risk being taken for granted. Boundaries are a way to show others that while we're open to sharing our time and energy, we won't do so at the expense of our own happiness or self-respect. This communicates strength and independence, qualities that inspire respect from others. We are essentially teaching others how to treat us by modeling the standards we hold for ourselves. Having strong boundaries also clarifies what is acceptable in a relationship. When we don't set limits, we may inadvertently create unrealistic expectations for ourselves or allow others to expect more from us than we can give. This can lead to feelings of resentment, exhaustion, or even a sense of being trapped in the relationship. When we communicate our boundaries, we may make it clear what's reasonable and fair, which sets the stage for a balanced connection. This way, both parties know what is expected and can feel more comfortable being themselves, without worrying about hidden expectations or unspoken pressures. Boundaries are also a protective measure for our emotional well-being. Close relationships can sometimes blur the line between support and dependency, and without boundaries, we may find ourselves sacrificing too much or ignoring our own needs to keep the other person happy. Each time we push our limits to accommodate others, we chip away at our self-respect. Setting boundaries helps us engage in relationships without losing ourselves, allowing us to stay grounded and retain a sense of who we are. With boundaries in place, we can participate in the relationship without feeling overwhelmed or disconnected from our own identity. Moreover, setting boundaries and showing self-worth demonstrates a high level of emotional maturity. It shows that we're capable of self-reflection, that we know what we need to thrive, and that we're not looking for others to fill every emotional gap. By managing our boundaries, we acknowledge that while relationships are important, they do not define our entire sense of self. This self-reliance and independence can be inspiring to others, as it shows that we're comfortable with who we are. When people witness us holding to our boundaries, they tend to respect the confidence that comes from understanding ourselves and knowing what we stand for. An additional benefit of showing self-worth and setting boundaries is that it naturally attracts healthier, more supportive relationships. When we respect ourselves, we gravitate toward people who respect us in return, rather than those who might seek to exploit our kindness or generosity. This way, boundaries act as a filter, helping us to keep connections that truly add value to our lives and to avoid relationships that drain our energy. We start to see that the best relationships are those where both individuals are equally invested, supportive, and considerate of each other's well-being. Boundaries help us identify who is genuinely committed to our happiness and who might be taking us for granted. Boundaries also encourage personal growth within relationships. They prevent one-sided dynamics, allowing both parties to support each other's individuality. In a relationship where boundaries are respected, each person is free to pursue their own interests and maintain their own sense of self, which ultimately leads to a healthier and more fulfilling bond. Both people are encouraged to grow individually while also investing in the connection. Instead of limiting each other, they create a shared space where both individuals feel respected, valued, and free to express themselves without fear of judgment or control. Showing self-worth and setting boundaries can be transformative. People often return to relationships where they feel a sense of admiration for the other person's integrity and self-assuredness. By showing self-worth, we build a foundation of mutual respect where each person feels free to be their true self. Boundaries don't push people away, they invite the right people and those who see our value and are willing to connect with us in a balanced, genuine way. Ultimately, showing self-worth and maintaining boundaries creates relationships that mirror our values and respect our individuality. We become someone who doesn't just seek companionship, but seeks a quality connection that respects our boundaries. By holding to these standards, we attract relationships that are mutually beneficial, grounded in respect, and capable of lasting through challenges. This commitment to self-respect and balance allows us to build deeper, more genuine bonds that honor both our well-being and the well-being of others. Letting go can feel like one of the greatest challenges in life, and it remains a mystery as to why it's so difficult yet ultimately so transformative. We are naturally drawn to hold on to people, experiences, and familiar feelings. Holding on can feel comforting and give a sense of control, even if what we cling to no longer serves us. But letting go, though unsettling, is often the doorway to growth, new perspectives, and a greater sense of freedom. When we learn to release, we open ourselves up to possibilities we might not have imagined, allowing life to unfold in ways that we could not foresee. The difficulty of letting go often lies in our attachment to what we've known. Relationships, habits, and memories form a significant part of our identity, shaping how we see ourselves in the world. Letting go of any of these aspects can feel as though we're losing a part of ourselves, as if we're leaving behind a comfortable version of who we are. This discomfort is compounded by the fear of the unknown of what comes next, or of who we might become without these familiar elements. Yet, as uncomfortable as it may feel, letting go is a process that allows us to evolve. It encourages us to redefine ourselves, not by our past, but by our capacity to embrace new beginnings. The act of letting go also requires a deep level of trust in ourselves, in life, and in the notion that we don't need to hold on to everything to be happy or fulfilled. Often, we cling because we fear that if we release our grasp, we'll be left empty or lacking. This fear is natural, But it can also keep us stuck in situations, relationships, or mindsets that don't allow us to grow. Letting go teaches us that we don't need to rely on the past to feel secure. We learn to trust that, even without these attachments, we are still whole. This trust is a powerful force that allows us to face the unknown with courage and hope. Letting go also involves forgiveness of ourselves, of others, and of situations that didn't turn out the way we had hoped. When we hold on to resentment or regret, we carry a weight that affects our present and limits our future. Releasing this weight is an act of compassion for ourselves. It frees us from the emotional burden of the past. This forgiveness is not about condoning any harm done, but about accepting that we cannot change what has already happened. By letting go of these negative emotions, we allow ourselves to focus on the present and to build a future unclouded by past grievances. One of the greatest mysteries of letting go is how it can bring us closer to inner peace. When we stop clinging to things beyond our control, we create space for contentment and acceptance. Letting go doesn't mean we forget or dismiss what mattered to us. It means we no longer allow these things to control us. We recognize that life is a series of moments, and each one passes, whether we hold on tightly or allow it to flow. Embracing this flow can lead to a profound sense of peace as we understand that we are free to experience life fully without being held back by outdated attachments.